Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including Star vs. the Force of Evil, which we'll be getting into right now. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Michelle Anderer.
Hi.
Sam Quattro.
Hello.
And Alex Bonilla.
Hola.
Today we are recapping the March 10th episodes of Star vs. the Force of Evil, Butterfly Trap, and Ludo, Where Art Thou? Star is weekly throughout all of March and into April on Saturday mornings, and we are recapping every Saturday morning here on the Overly Animated Podcast. Find us at overlyanimated.com or search for Overly Animated Star on iTunes. Subscribe there or YouTube to not miss any of our future Star podcasts. We also had a panel discussion, a second week for Star last week, so check that out. We'll see if we have it for these for this week again. But we're going to get into Butterfly Trap and Ludo, Where Art Thou? Make sure you've seen these episodes that aired this morning on Disney XD. Spoilers for both of these episodes. Michelle, what did you think of these two?
Well, okay, Butterfly Trap kind of confirmed a lot of theories that we had suggested previously. So that was kind of nice. Although, this is definitely, so Eclipsa really is, so Star is not royalty at all. They're going to have to talk about that later.
So Michelle's just taking it in right now. Wow.
Yeah. I was so hyped for Ludo, Where Art Thou, but I feel kind of let down. I don't really think anything substantial happened, and I'm kind of sad because I really like Ludo. I'm glad he worked through some stuff literally from his brother just being there. But I don't know. I was hoping more would happen, or we'd let Ludo do some other kind of plot thing, but I guess he still has a lot to work through with Star and Marco as well as his parents. So, it was a little disappointing, but I'm glad he's still doing well.
He's still doing. Is that doing well?
Well,
okay.
He's doing better than he was.
He's alive.
Nobody's taking control of his body right now. That's definitely a step up from last season.
That's true.
Is it though?
Those are the questions we'll get into. Okay. Sam, what did you think of these two episodes?
Let's see. Butterfly Trap is the best episode of Star ever. Just putting that out there.
Yeah.
What? Please tell us why.
Yeah, tell us why.
I loved it. It was just okay, so there's this thing in filmmaking and television where it's a one-room movie or one-room scene or one-room show where just all the action happens in one specific place, and when that happens you get a lot of good character moments, you get a lot of good dialogue, and this is a perfect example of that. We got a lot of reveals, we got a lot of drama, backstory, feelings. It was just great. I loved it. It made me love Eclipsa so much. It made me really feel for Star, Moon, etc. It made me hate the High Magic Council, so screw them. It was a great episode. It really made me feel super invested in the show that I haven't really felt in a little bit.
Wow, nice. Oh, you're saying...
But then the other episode was
Wow, how dare you?
Okay. Dennis is the only reason that Ludo is okay now.
Yeah, he's the only part of his family that cares about him.
Yeah, that's a package deal. You can't have Ludo without Dennis now. Without Dennis, Ludo is just a squawking guy.
Squawking guy. I feel like you're comparing Butterfly Trap to 12 Angry Men a little bit, which I feel like
it kind of is.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting comparison. Nice.
That isn't an interesting comparison. It's a good comparison.
Yeah, that might be what they're going for a little bit. So yeah, cool. Alex, what do you think?
I'm on Sam's side here. The Butterfly Trap is an awesome episode. I'm willing to give it best episode of this season. I'm not sure if I go as far as best episode of the show, but it's definitely the best we've had in a long time. I think I agree with Sam that the emotional stakes in that episode are very well constructed. The Magic High Commission has their flashes of humor, and the final sequence with Eclipse and Star, it tugs at the heartstrings very much. Ludo, Where Art Thou? I have an interesting response to, because I actually enjoy Ludo as a character for most episodes he appears in. Here, he's just off the rails entirely. So
he's so crazy.
It's not great if you want Ludo to be important again, which I do want. I want Ludo to have a place in this show again. But I still enjoyed the episode just for like how at the kind of atmosphere they built around that entire episode, showing us Dennis's struggles with his families, getting into like the abusive relationship they have. And then the whole like horror kind of atmosphere of the final sequence with all the fake parents just popping out of nowhere, the creepy music. It was a very entrancing episode to watch on the first time around. On rewatch, it probably doesn't hold up as much, but I definitely enjoyed the experience of seeing all that happen the first time.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad we're having some good takes on Ludo art though. I liked Butterfly Trap. I think that we are way hyperbolizing the episode. I thought it was pretty good. There's the big problem I think with this episode is that the shock ending is what we talked about last week. Like this is something that we saw coming. This has been happening actually for quite a few of our shows where it's like big plot revelation. It's just, something that the previous episode basically led you towards. So I don't think
that's good though. Cause if your show throws something at you out of nowhere that they don't seed, I feel like that's the mark of a bad way to tell
much
story.
Like Monster Bash, you might say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's good to have build up to a twist. But I don't think this was a twist for Butterfly Trap. I think that this was a twist that was presented to us in Total Eclipse of the Moon. Like, I think that episode just almost, I mean, it was subtle, but like, that's the natural conclusion that you would have for the name being replaced on the record. Literally talked about it last podcast, so I wasn't like shocked at all. I mean, I think this episode is certainly much worse than Deep Dive Nightlife. Lava Beach, like
false.
I like much, like not even the same
like,
level. Anyway, it's still good though. Like I think this is good, and Ludo Artho I have nothing to say about. So let's talk about Butterfly. Literally, I won't say one thing about it this whole podcast.
Yeah,
let's
you
talk
should
about
see his outline. It's like 2 words.
I know, it's so short.
Even worse,
much like Ludo.
Even worse, the Wikipedia article for list of Star vs. the Forces of Evil episodes doesn't even have the synopsis for it up yet.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they don't.
Like it has like 7 sentences for Butterfly Trap and then nothing for the Ludo episode.
I mean, the Wikipedia article is inconsistent with putting synopses in, but let's talk Butterfly Trap.
Bothered to Butterfly.
Well, maybe there's a reason why for that. Butterfly Trap. The big conclusion we arrive at in this episode is that this was all a setup by Moon and Star.
Good.
And
it was
Eclipse
their
as well.
trap.
It was their trap, yeah. And they're not, Star arrives at the conclusion they're not related. They're no more royal than anyone else, and she frees Eclipsa, but Moon's still right there, so I don't know what effect that has. Like,
doesn't that stuff like happen all the time where just like another royal family will just take over the lineage or whatever, except it's like a Prince and the Pauper sort of situation here. Anyway.
Yeah,
continue.
I guess so. I mean,
usually it's by violent coup d'etat.
Right.
Yeah.
Last week I compared this possibility to Black Panther.
Yes.
And it's literally just Black Panther. So there you go. It's Michelle, were you shook by this revelation?
No, it actually kind of makes me happy. Because, I mean, we haven't really talked about it much this season, but in season 2, one of the things that was really exciting was that Star was she was forging her own destiny as a princess, and she was developing her own spells, and, I mean, she's clearly, like, exceedingly powerful, and the idea that she's not even legitimately royal makes that kind of awesome to me. Like, if they swapped out, Eclipse's daughter with a random, like, peasant chick, and that Star's lineage, like the fact that she's still so powerful is like kind of dope. I really like that.
Kind of dope, yeah.
So I'm really okay with this happening. Because like it makes me sad when people expect greatness because it's your lineage, you have to be great. But she's a nobody, and she's still awesome and super powerful, and I really like that twist. So I'm totally fine with it. I liked it as a reveal.
That's a cool take. Yes, should be noted. She's still a Johansson princess, even if, but not that really matters on the show.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
the matriarchy.
Right. in the butterfly side of things. When you put it that way, very reminiscent of the Star Wars Last Jedi, one of the big twists in that movie. So
wow, spoilers.
I mean, I'm not saying what, but this would.
I still haven't seen it, Dylan.
I haven't seen it either.
This invokes, I feel like, the recent Star Wars movie for Star.
Spoiler alert for Star Wars. There are wars
so.
of the stars.
There are wars of the stars.
Yeah,
Star
spoilers.
Wars versus the forces of.
I think
Sith
the bigger spoilers for Black Panther. That was more recent, but being vague about
spoilers.
Okay. Sam, was this episode spoilers for you by the previous one, or were you shook by it?
I was pretty shook, honestly. I mean, like, I knew, like, the whole, like, twist that was gonna happen, because we already knew that, what's her face? Miss Heinous or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is, the daughter that I forget the name of.
Meteora.
Yeah, Meteora. We already knew that. We already knew all that stuff, but just, I was shook by the betrayal of, like, the Magic Council and, like, how they would go through, like, such lengths to protect their own in order to, like, not let the truth get out,
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, I think
but, like, they're willing to, like, risk death in order to, like, to save each other's
lie.
things,
Yeah.
And not do, like, the noble thing when they're, like, they need to do the noble thing, like, in the best interest of everybody else.
Right. I think the High Commission side of things was more surprising, although I also said that last week, was that it's like Moon at last episode says, I think I know what's up here, and it's the High Commission, and that was a setup for that was setting up her making this trap for the High Commission in this episode through the trial. So Moon suspects the High Commission. I feel like that's a pretty successful side of things. Alex, what was your reaction to everything at the end of this episode?
I definitely enjoyed seeing it play out. While I agree with you that the conclusion is something that we could have predicted from previous episodes, but I think what helps that scene have the emotional impact is just Star's reaction, like her immediate heartbrokenness of it,
yeah.
Like, oh, you actually aren't my great grandma, are you? And like Eclipse is also expressing sadness and saying like, I'm not, and she storms out of the room. Like Star's entire performance in that scene helps the revelation to have an impact, even if you expected the results. Just seeing it play out in that way. So in that sense, that's what I think elevates this episode to being a great episode, is just that final scene. And I don't think having predicted it from previous episodes hurts it in that sense.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's valid.
Yeah.
Personally, I thought I didn't have the same reaction to Star storming out. I think she was very auxiliary in this episode. Like she was
for most of the episode, I agree. But that final scene is where she stands out.
Yeah, I think she was good. I didn't, Star saying you're not my great whatever. I don't know. I didn't super emotionally connect to that. I'm certainly intrigued by the possibilities that this leaves with Star's character. I definitely agree with Michelle in that regard. That's like the exciting part of this twist. Like Star not being a princess, I want to go down this plot line for sure.
Why do they all still have the cheek markings?
Right.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
What
These
does
are
it
the
mean?
questions. Yeah. What does it all mean? Yeah. You're like the announcer guy, I feel like, for the promos for the show, but
I am. What does it all mean? Tune in at like whatever time Star comes on.
Yeah.
Saturday.
Whatever time o'clock.
Yeah. Those we still have questions like, are they butterflies in some way? Why do they have the cheek marks? Why do they have like royal power? How does this all work? People are asking these questions. I don't super care about any of that, but
these are the issues.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is like Star, not a princess. How does her self-identity handle that? That's like, it's like almost the Dark Star arc to a certain extent. Like this is what I want to do.
She still is technically a princess because Moon is still the queen. And
will Moon abdicate? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing I was interested in at the end of this. Like, why is Moon pursuing this exactly? Because she has to know that if the answer she's thinking it is correct, then her queenship will be questioned. So, like, is there something behind this other than just wanting the truth? Or is she that willing to go for the truth that she's willing to give up the throne?
I think it's the latter.
Yeah, I think it's the latter too.
Are they going to boot off the royal family though? Like,
yeah, that's
just
what
like
I'm thinking.
make Eclipse a queen?
They might.
I think it depends on if Eclipsa pursues this. I don't think anyone's going to say, Eclipsa, you're queen now. I think Eclipsa would have to challenge the throne on her own.
Are they going to make it a democracy?
Or Meteora, yeah,
yeah,
she's a wild card. She's off being creepy in the woods right now.
And
she could come back.
I don't think either of them, from what we've seen, would necessarily do that.
Well,
based on what they're presenting.
Meteora gives off the vibe that could end up being a situation where she wants to get revenge on the kingdom, maybe overrun it with monsters. Or she realizes she's been abandoned and wants to take revenge in that sense. So I do think that the Meteora challenging for the throne is a very possible plot line we'll get into at some point.
If she was,
Panther.
Yeah,
wow.
it's literally if she was on the show. I feel like she's not been on the show since the finale. But,
are they going to have an election?
No. Yeah, well, that's always the way to go with these monarchy storylines is, let's have a democracy at the end. But, I have a take on this. I am not buying Eclipsa still. At the
really?
Yeah. I'm still waiting.
What a twist!
I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop with Eclipsa, and that's something else.
I thought that there were no more shoes that dropped, Dylan.
I know. You thought we'd taken off all our shoes. No, but
most people only
more in the closet.
Yeah.
Most people only wear 2 singular shoes at a time.
Star has 10 pairs of shoes though, so we're
but is she wearing them all right now
on top of each other? That's something else that diminishes the impact of the ending of this episode for me is that I feel like the show is clearly still going to do the Eclipse is actually evil thing, and this is just building us more up in the other direction so that it's even more of a shock and a betrayal to Moon and Star when it turns out that she'd been hiding things. Last episode, what did she do when Moon was asleep? Those types of things, and I think that diminishes this impact because I still think it's obvious that we're going to do something evil with Eclipsa. Michelle, do you agree?
I mean, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop in the sense that I feel like Eclipsa's got something up her sleeve, but the thing I like about Eclipse is I feel like she's so morally gray that she certainly doesn't see herself as evil. And objectively, maybe Star won't, even if that other shoe does drop. I think she might do things that would be questionable, but straight up evil, I don't know. But that's what I'm excited for, where she's going to fall into that discussion, what her motivations are. Because I don't think she's straight up evil, but there's definitely room for problematic stuff to go down, and I want to see that. So I'm hoping there's more to it.
Yeah, I don't believe anything Eclipse has presented us on face value. That's the thing. Literally anything that she's behaved in front of Star or Moon, I think that's all up for debate whether that's been real. Alex, what's your take?
Yeah, my take is I don't really care. As in the last episode I said, I don't really care if Eclipsa is good or evil. All the stuff emotionally still works with me no matter what because Eclipsa is just a good character and end of story. So, even if she's gonna do something later on that Star and Moon are hey, that's not right, but I trust the show enough with Eclipsa to make that interesting because this episode in itself was very interesting to watch Eclipsa's reactions to everything, seeing how, with this whole bots of truth thing, and so she's to the point of just adding details it was an evil chapter, and hey, I did even more evil spells later on. And so it's I think that the adding the bots of truth to this episode was a great move, just because at least in what Eclipsa is saying, you can believe at least that stuff is true enough, considering the power we've seen the bots have in the past episode that it appeared in. So I really enjoyed that they added that piece to this episode. But yeah, overall with Eclipsa's character, sure, I'm expecting something else to pop up with her. But I think the episode works no matter what direction they end up taking Eclipsa.
I mean, it certainly can stand on its own. The other thing is that we go with this twist with the butterflies not being royalty anymore, and I feel like it masks the conclusion of the trial. Literally, the trap takes importance over the trial itself, and I don't think we get the answers that we were necessarily looking for with regards to, is Eclipse culpable in any way? Is she evil? Really, the questions that we ask her are all things that we knew that she did. Did you run off with the monster? Yes. Did you write the spell book? Yes. All of that to us doesn't seem evil. That's the thing, and she's pronounced guilty by the box. It's still all very unsatisfying with regards to Eclipsa's culpability, because she's declared guilty, but one, it doesn't matter. Two, not from our perspective, she shouldn't have been guilty. She didn't do anything wrong here.
Well, see, I think this episode is just trying to hammer home the idea that the Magic High Commission is the one that has a decent amount of blame as well, in just displaying overt racism, no matter what Eclipsa does. Like, oh, it's related to a monster? Okay, bad. Throw her in jail, kill her. Like, I think that's the main point of this episode, rather than like what Eclipsa did, because you're right. Everything that we've talking about Eclipsa, we have picked up over the past couple of episodes. This kind of just acts like a summary. The only main revelation is the whole swapping thing, but that's news to Eclipsa.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It shifts the focus. But like, this is something you can't just. We're gonna have to address this at some point. You know, we've been building it up all season long. Eclipsa's crimes here. So, and
I think we're building up to the idea that her crimes aren't actually crimes.
Okay, so my counterpoint is the box, because if it was just the High Commission pronouncing her guilty, that would be one thing. But the box says she's guilty. That's why I'm a little iffy on whether the box was a good idea. Like, why? Oh, the box said she's guilty. Why? You're supposed to be this objective box thing. Like,
guilty of crimes against humanity, and in that sense,
what were her crimes against humanity? Like, I don't get
siding with monsters. Monsters aren't human, so in that sense, the box.
Okay, I like it. I like it when you explained it. I don't think the episode explained that.
I took it as guilty of, like, did you do this thing we're asking you about? Yes. And so being guilty of that was like the problem. But the issue is, like, the questions were inherently misleading, because is doing the certain thing a bad thing? If you say no, it's like, well, she's still guilty of that thing, even if objectively that thing she did isn't bad.
Right.
So I think that's why, like, technically she was guilty by the box, but like in Star's eyes, she's not guilty of doing anything wrong.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm not, and I should say, I'm not, these objections I have aren't like criticisms of the episode, because I think the show is doing this intentionally. I just think it's like, I question how satisfying it is from an audience perspective at this point, but like, these are reactions I'm having to what's happening on the screen. You know, like all of season 3 didn't set up challenging the royal line. It set up like Eclipsa's crimes, and I feel like this episode didn't advance that at all. In fact, like, this was all just a rehashing of what we knew. So that's why I'm still waiting for the shoe to drop. We didn't address Eclipsa's culpability in any way. Sam, what do you think? Do you blame Eclipsa for anything that was addressed in the trial this episode?
No, I feel like, at the very least, like, the Magic Commission is, like, seeing things totally in black and white. And that isn't fair. Like, the world isn't in black and white, and certainly not that world. I really don't think Eclipsa did anything wrong, and I don't think that there is another shoe to drop, Dylan.
But what's the point of her character then? I feel like the way to go with her is to have it be a surprise. Oh, she was evil after all. I don't know. I don't think she's just this nice misunderstood lady that's gonna lead the monster evolution. I guess
that would be awesome, though. Like,
sure.
Honestly, she doesn't need to be evil to be interesting. I think she still would be incredibly a fascinating, compassionate character if she was just misused by a system that is very corrupt. And for what ends? To uphold something that's a lie. Like, I don't think she needs to be bad for that to still be compelling. I agree with Sam on that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a compelling way to do that. The show has certainly presented her sketchy for the entire time she's been on screen. I guess you could argue that that's because they wanted us to question her and have it be a surprise, when now it's the commission, not her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe that's the other shoe.
Maybe that was the other
shoe. I think that was dropped in this episode.
We're running out of shoes here.
We already did that gag, but
okay, shut up.
Yeah, I don't know, Alex. Do you buy that we'd only presented Eclipsa sketchy to subvert it, with the High Commission being truly evil this episode, not her?
I mean, that's a possibility. If she's sketchy and she ends up evil, cool. She's still a cool character while being sketchy. And if she's just a sketchy character but she ends up being good, then awesome. That means she'll stay around and be Star's mentor, avoiding being a better version of Glossaryck, maybe. But yeah, like, I'm not. I'm not that interested really in seeing what Eclipse's end game is because I just enjoy her appearances in the moment, like in an episode. Like for me, it doesn't affect my enjoyment at all whether she ends up being a good person or she ends up betraying Star and Moon. I trust the show enough to let me enjoy Eclipse doing her thing, no matter what direction they decide to take her.
I mean, I think we can, we can come back to this when the show does that. I feel like that's presumptuous to say. No matter what we do, her appearances will still stand on her own. You know, I certainly think that probably is true. Like, she's been interesting enough in everything on her own. But if the show doesn't really contrite expected way, it could take away from her character a little bit. And the thing I'm not convinced about is that, the last episode we still presented this time when she's unaccounted for. There's a few things like that still haven't been explained, and they could just be huge misleads from the episodes trying to build up to have this High Commission thing be a big twist. But like, if this is the payoff for all that, like, we saw this coming to a certain extent after last week. Moon said, I know who's responsible. She didn't say the High Commission, but that's the only place for us to go with that. So I feel like there still needs to be something else to pay off all these little things, like Moon being asleep and she's running around. So I definitely think that we're still going to have some sort of Eclipse twist to come. Yeah,
that's I think plenty obvious.
I feel like it's at least a 50-50. So yeah, I would not be surprised if that's what happens.
Yeah, and I don't know. I
don't want that to happen.
Right. I think
that's fair too.
I think everyone kind of would just prefer if we didn't do she's evil, you know. Like,
I told you so.
I just don't want the show to write her off if she's evil. I think that's why it would bum me out. But I agree with Alex that I trust that the show is gonna do good by her in some way to make her still interesting and compelling and not throw her away when she stops being a plot point. I hope she continues to be a plot point. If she is the new Gloster, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly in question whether Glossric will appear in a major way any time again on the show. So that's probably
he hasn't been around for a while.
Yeah, and voice actor circumstances will come into play soon enough whenever we get around to that affecting production in the recent time. But like I said though, none of that's the most interesting thing to me. The most interesting thing is how it affects Star, and I guess that's why this episode to me isn't is good but not great. It's because Star isn't the major focus.
You're focusing on the minor character in this episode. That's
why.
Star,
the minor character. You mean Sean? We didn't talk about Sean. No.
No!
He's even less than minor.
Oh my god.
No Sean ever.
Sean, some great Sean reaction gifs. Come on.
Yeah, he had good reactions, but at what cost?
At the cost of us making gifs of them? Is that the cost? Of taking away from the more important things? That's what you mean? Okay,
no.
But obviously, I'm the thing. I continually say this. I basically only care about Star and Marco in the show, and
on the other hand, I would like to say that these have been the best 4 episodes because we haven't had Marco. Thank goodness.
You're just baiting the fans. Jeez. Alex just trying to enrage people, man. Yeah, no Marco the last 4 episodes. I don't think we need Marco here, but to me, the interesting thing about this is how this is going to affect Star, and we didn't see her that much in this episode. But yeah, Princess-less Star is that's a great concept. Let's do stuff there.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with Michelle that it's a lot more impactful because of the fact that this show has been building up her self-identifying as a princess. I have to be better as a princess. As recently as Monster Bash, she's taking very seriously her role and trying to get better at it. So just ripping that part of her identity away from her is a bold move, and definitely something to look at how she recovers or how she comes to terms with her initial reaction of, we're nobody. Obviously, the show has shown us she's more than nobody, but she has to come to terms with herself.
Yeah, and the thing that reminded me of is, it's 1, The Last Jedi, the twist there, but 2, the other time I've referenced Last Jedi on this podcast is with Mysticons, a show I assume a lot of listeners of the show haven't watched, but, there's a similar thing where we have a very established identity for a character in that, and then there's a twist and we go against that identity, and it's going to be interesting to see how that character is impacted by their true, something that happens, which they like that they didn't affect, like having an effect on their actions. I think it's a similar thing with Star here. She's a princess. We're doubling down on her being a princess. We are having her trying to be the best princess that she can be. That seems to be a means to an end in order to make her not a princess here. And that's going to be super interesting in how that impacts her psychologically, how that just literally impacts their role in the show. Is she literally going to be a princess? Is she going to go back to Earth? Is this how we're going back to Earth and not staying on Muni because it's going to be Queen Eclipsa now? What's happening here? Is this going to affect her, the seeming direction we're going at the end of season 2 with the dark magic? How's this going to interplay with the most important part of Star vs. Force Evil, the romance drama? And, will this,
Is that the most important part, though?
I mean, if you ask the fans, then yes.
If you ask the fans of any single thing, that is the most important.
Especially this show.
That is always what the writers say.
Especially this show. But will this affect her relationship with Tom, and will this resurface her feelings with Marco? I feel like the whole show is gonna coalesce around that. That being said, this is what I said about Dark Star at the end of season 2, and we chose to go with this Eclipsa route. So I'm not sure if we actually will stay focused on this princess-less Star thing.
It'll be a thing we touch on, but I think that's just the wrong focus to take the show on. I think the show has been focusing a lot more on the Muni and politics side, and I'm very interested in that side of things. But yeah, the people who are just watching this for, say, Starco, I guess they don't care.
Oh, well, Alex, the countdown has begun for Booth Buddies in 2 weeks. I'll have you know. So,
Whoopee.
Booth Buddies, set your timer because it's happening.
Whoopee.
This episode, unimportant. Booth Buddies, very important. So stay tuned.
Yeah, see, I think that this is just weeding out what you're watching the show for. And it's a valid reason to watch this show because admittedly Star and Marco have awesome chemistry. But if you're watching it just for that, then I can see why Eclipsa seems boring to you and this entire trial is whatever.
So yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't say that, and I think Eclipse is great. I think it's, I would say that, the reason why the show has fans so much more focused on romance, even than, obviously fans of any show online are going to be most focused on the shipping, but this show, it's especially true, and I believe, as, the first piece of content I wrote for Overly Animated about Star after I caught up after season 1 is, Star is great because of Star and Marco's dynamic. That is the reason why the show is good. It's good because of Star and Marco and their dynamic. And
I would agree with you in season 1 that was the main thing that keeps you going. But I think by season 2 and going forward, they've done enough with their mythology to at least keep you interested in that side of things if you're not interested in the shipping. You have to get through season 1.
There's clearly multiple components to the show. I think that the number one reason of why the show is great is because of the, not necessarily romantic, but just the dynamic between Star and Marco and other character-to-character interactions, especially between the two strongest characters of the show. Everything else is auxiliary. I truly believe that the royalty and monster stuff is auxiliary to Star and Marco's dynamic. And just because it's had a little bit of a resurgence here in 3B and the end of 3A doesn't mean that it's more important. And I feel to a certain extent, you shouldn't prioritize plot lines like that. And for this show, I'm not convinced that this show is completely eschewing the relationship dynamics in terms of importance just because it's been more focused upon recently. Maybe it feels like it's maturing beyond that. I think that would be a mistake. I think the human monster stuff could be really interesting, but it's interesting in relation to how Star views it. I only care about that.
Star is still an awesome character, and it would be great to see more of her side. If we continue this plotline of Star trying to get the monster and human relationship going, what are her struggles going through that? I agree with you that that's also a very interesting part of the show to watch, but that's because Star is a great character. In relation to Marco, it's not that interesting.
It's both. It's Star is a great character and Star in relation to Marco. It's about Star. Star is the best thing about the show, obviously. She's one of the best characters on TV, and we need to stay focused on her. That's the worrying part. Anyway, that's a nice that's a side topic here. Michelle, any takes on this?
I mean, I think it's important to remember that this is a Disney show for kids.
Okay, no, get out of here with that. No.
What I mean by that is they are always going to be balancing the plot with characters because they want people to be engaged, and especially people from a certain age range. And so I don't think there's any fear that it's going to just like stop having shipping stuff at all and just be a plot show. I don't think that's something that they would do, just given the sake of the audience they're aiming for.
I wonder, do the children like the shipping? Is that like what they're doing it for? I'm not sure about that.
I don't know.
I think a lot of people like shipping if done well with characters that you find compelling. And while that is really important, I do agree with Alex that the show has evolved beyond Star's dynamic with Marco in season 1, because there really wasn't a ton of plot stuff happening there till the second half of the season. Even in season 2, half of the reason, like, even though I don't ship Starco, that I appreciate it to an extent was because the plot fed directly into things that were motivating characters. So I really do think you need both for a really great show. I think hopefully the characters help you care about the plot more, but the plot's also interesting enough to elevate the things that you really like about the characters. I think it's a give and take kind of relationship. And I do think having both is, a perfect relationship, symbiotic relationship. So that's like what I hope. It seems like they might be going in a monster, that they should be, because they've been feeding that for a while. It's something to talk about, and how Star's identity fits into that, and her relationship with Marco, her relationship with Tom. I feel like that's all going to come. We just have to be patient at this point. But I think it's all there. I think it's definitely all set up.
I think another way, a more concise way to stay in my viewpoint on this is I think Star should be a character-focused show, a character-first show, not a plot-first show. Focus on Star's character. This is also why I hate Ludo episodes, because Star's not in them.
And this is why I love Ludo episodes usually.
Because you hate Star, that's why. Yeah, it's confirmed.
I hate Marco. I like Star.
Since when are you? What's with this hate Marco gag? This is you. Why are you going down this rabbit hole? This podcast, but yeah. Anyway, I think I've said this on previous podcasts. I really think Star should stay character focused, unlike some other shows that I think should focus more on their plot, like Steven Universe. I think Star should stay character focused, like to a heavy extent.
I think Star should have a balance. Like I like where it is right now. Like it's balancing between plot and character. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I think a lot of people might agree, but I'm not sure what the consensus is. I think the high point for the show is definitely season 2B. And I think we've been, to a certain extent, floundering through season 3, but there've still been great episodes. So, I don't know.
Personally, I'll say for myself, I'm excited about the monster human stuff, and I'm excited about the shipping and Star, and where the character stuff is going, where the Ludo stuff is going now, because he's all doing what he's doing. I'm excited for all of it now.
And the most important thing we're all excited for is Tom Star, right?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm excited for that breakup.
Yeah, next week. Yeah, no,
just get rid of Tom.
By the way, you briefly mentioned Steven Universe. Can we just take a brief moment to compare and contrast this episode to the trial of Steven Universe? Because I feel like this episode does it a lot better. The trial from Steven Universe is just a bunch of misdirects. You don't end up with any real information. While this episode, it provides information that we picked up in previous episodes, but it lays it out much clearer, and it involves an actual revelation, like so that there was a swap, something that's meaningful to the story. And with the end in Steven Universe with the diamonds, they're in the same place you saw them before the episode. Whereas here with the Magic High Commission, it's kind of just laid out, okay, this was an orchestrated lie. So it ends up with a clearer message, and therefore it's executed much better a trial episode than what Steven Universe managed to do.
You're on your own with the trial of Steven Universe criticism. This is the rare instance where I'm much higher. I think the trial of Steven Universe is an incredible episode, and Butterfly Trap is an alright episode.
That sounds like an article waiting to happen.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I'll say
I really think you're in the minority on the trial, Alex.
The thing with the trial is that because Steven and Lars exit the situation, they don't really see if Blue Diamond confronts Yellow about everything that was revealed. So in this one, they really are it happened for sure. But
who's gonna be revealed as evil first, Eclipse or whatever? I don't know who Yellow Diamond, Blue Diamond. Who's the comparison?
Due to scheduling reasons,
right?
Eclipse.
Definitely Star. That's right. Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with Michelle. Part of this is that trial episode never actually ended. I think if you're going to do a trial, you got to follow it through
Alex,
to the conclusion.
You're criticizing the show and not the episode, in my opinion. But I feel like that's a larger issue. I would argue the opposite. I would argue Steven Universe the Trial keeps me engaged because it's about things that are up in the air, whereas this episode I already knew what was happening, so it's not as engaging. But I could see the other perspective too, because I frequently espouse the other criticism for Steven Universe. So
exactly. Steven Universe, I think, is a more of a slow burn, and that can be great, but it can also suck. So it is nice to have episodes like this, Butterfly Trap, where you concretely know something for real that you've been wondering about for a while. And it's nice to get some definitive feedback instead of still because Steven Universe, I feel like you always learn a little bit more, but then you always have way more questions after you learn that one thing you were wondering about. So it's a different approach. I think it depends on your preference, which you like more.
Yeah. Star, I think, is in general better with answering questions, but at the same time, some questions it says oh, that's not important anymore. Let's focus on this. And,
Right. I think that's the balance you have to kind of, because it's I guess that. Okay, well, I don't care anymore. Or just now I know one thing, but now I still don't know these other things. Oh, it's so frustrating. Both of those can be kind of great or not great, depending on your take on it.
Yeah. Interesting. We're in interesting places in both shows. Okay, that was this concludes our 20-minute larger discussion about Star. I didn't know we were going to get into, but briefly, the box is the box from Sleepover.
I loved him.
I love that they're different settings.
Sam, is Box your favorite character?
He might be.
He might be.
He has good lines.
Yeah, the Truth and Punishment Box. Oh yeah, by the way, Romulus has a crush on Moon.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
That's fun. I can see it.
Just why? Why can you see it?
I don't know. It just seems it feels like a thing that would happen in IRL.
I found it very disappointing because that means he's already moved on from Lekmeth's death. That was his true love, and then as soon as he dies, it's Moon.
Did you see that little memorial picture they had of him?
Yeah, the chair.
The settings on the box, the party setting, which is what was set to. There's an intervention setting, a bachelorette setting.
Oh,
right,
I love that one.
And then the trial, yeah. So there you go.
I want to hear the bachelorette setting. That's a fanfic right there.
Oh, turn the box to the bachelorette setting for Star. Yes, okay, it's canon.
Yeah, but Star is not going to have a bachelorette party.
By season 7, maybe.
Yeah, how much are we going down the shipping route?
Tom Star.
Oh my god.
Oh no.
And then, correction for last week. King Shastakan is her human husband, which I guess is what happened, and then she ran off to elope with the monster. So.
Good for her. Good for Eclipsa.
Following your dreams.
Yeah, don't be with that weird dude. Be with
your. Didn't even like your baby, and so
yeah, exactly. What kind of guy is that?
Yep. Okay.
If you're not going to accept your wedlock kid,
that's the kind of thing. It's a child of infidelities, but still, what did he do to make Eclipsa go off, or was it just that Eclipsa found this other monster more handsome, and that's the reason he left?
Right. From what we've been shown,
even though
what.
I thought it might have been an arranged marriage, because that was generations ago. They could have just hooked them both up. It's this will be great for political reasons. She's look at that hot guy over there, though. Oh, he's a monster. Whatever. He's still cute.
Monsters are hot.
Yeah. We still need the Eclipsa flashback episode, and everybody will say, "Oh, this is just like The Shape of Water."
Oh yeah, that's true. Shape of Water ripped off Eclipsa's story. There you go. I think we haven't been shown anything that would contradict Eclipsa just getting bored with her human husband, so that's another take on it. We really don't know the details. Anyway, let's talk Ludo or Art Thou, and by let's talk, I mean you guys talk. Michelle, what's your takeaways from this episode?
I'm glad Ludo's doing stuff and working through his severe mental baggage. I'm sad he was going a little bonkers there, but maybe now that Dennis has the dimensional scissors, he can check on him every once in a while, so he won't be completely alone. Like I said before, it was a little disappointing just because it's been a while, and I've really loved Ludo, and I still love Ludo, but I didn't feel a lot of progress was made with just this episode. So I just I hope he gets in on more important parts of the plot at some point in, say, the next season. Because I don't want to just leave him here being crazy in his own planet.
Sam, let me know if you want to speak to this, but How do you think this episode handles mental illness? Like, do you think it's portrayed? Do you think it's trying to address it? Do you think it's portrayed well at all?
Well, it definitely is trying to address it. I don't know. We've all seen Ludo sort of be off the rails for a while. In terms of treating a bunch of inanimate objects as your parents and then having your younger brother destroy them, that's on the more exaggerated side. However, I think it's going in a good direction. Because, it's definitely showing Ludo healing and, reconnecting with his brother, obviously. I don't know. It isn't the best, but this is not to be super duper expected, I think, coming from Ludo.
Yeah. And
what has happened with him in the past. So.
And that reminds me, Ludo is genuinely touched when his brother is there, and he's like, "You care about me? No one's ever said that to me before." That was a moment where he really it seemed to be very helpful for him.
Yeah,
I'm glad he has Dennis, honestly.
Yeah, Alex, what's your take on this?
Yeah, it was a very interesting episode to watch. I do want to say it's a bit strange that while we're saying Ludo faces his demons, so to speak, but it's Dennis who's doing all the action. Ludo is kind of just watching all of this happen. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, I'm not sure if the episode executed that greatly. And at the end, you have the whole Star and Marco dolls. I got to handle this on my own, presumably because Dennis is also dealing with the same demons of the parents that Ludo is, whereas Star and Marco is a Ludo exclusive thing. But still, it felt like a very an ending that just kind of said, well, the stuff that happened before isn't that important because he's still going to be crazy for a little bit. But yeah, Dennis is a very emotionally affecting character. Seeing him being bullied by his parents, and he's dedicated all this emotional attention to Ludo, who at first sight doesn't even really give him much attention. So that is a bit of a hurting experience. And then just that final sequence where the parents are popping up out of nowhere and you got the creepy music going on to the point where there's one that's giant over him as is saying things "Yo, you're just like your brother," and just repeating the same lines that the parents gave to him in that first encounter of bullying. It's a very I get what the episode is trying to do. I think it works at some parts and it doesn't work on others. But I think just the atmosphere that it builds made it a very interesting episode to watch. I'm not going to say it's the greatest Ludo episode. Ludo in the Wild, I think, was far more interesting. But it's not a bad episode either. And I think it continues the arc we've been trying to do with Ludo in past episodes of Ludo having the father issues. So also we had that episode with Glossaric where he's begging for approval. And that just seems to be his thing that he's never really gotten over. This episode feels like they're trying to put that to a conclusion, but just with that ending, I'm not sure if it ends up fulfilling that goal.
Yeah. I'll say it's a bad episode, but
but you hate Ludo, so you're wrong.
You already hate Ludo, Dylan.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm wrong to hate Ludo. Well, where are we going with Ludo in the show?
He's the Ice King of Star versus.
Oh boy, I take Ice King so much over Ludo. But yeah, are we going to see Ludo again in season 3B?
Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, they kind of left him in a place where he has to do some more work, and whether we show that on or off screen is still, I guess, going to be going on in the background. I'm not sure where Ludo's going to fit into this unless he's on Star's side, because what else is there for him to do? I mean, I guess maybe we could tie it into how she isn't royalty anymore and how that could, Ludo could rethink things and form an alliance, but I don't know. I'm not sure what they're going to do with Ludo. Maybe that's part of what kind of bums me out about the episode, because I want to feel like there's more, with Star and Butterfly Trap. There's so many questions I have, and I know that they're going to go in some interesting direction. With Ludo, I don't really know if they're going to do anything anytime soon, and that's kind of sad to me.
Yeah, I agree that there needs to be a way to like weave him back into the story if we're going to keep Ludo around. Like these Ludo exclusive episodes, they're fine. They work as an experimental thing to do for the show, but if we keep him apart and we keep saving him for these experimental episodes, then I'm with the audience in caring less and less about him every time he shows up, because you wonder, well, when is he going to get back into the real story other than being used as a body proxy for Toffee?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see when Ludo comes back. It is notable that there's no obvious mechanism for him to re-enter the story presented at the end of the episode. Like, Dennis goes away with the scissors, right? So, I'm skeptical, I guess, that he'll be coming back. And, I think I've probably said my piece on this enough throughout the podcast, but, I think Star vs. Force Evil is a show that, like, could be great, and yet feels the need to have episodes like Ludo Where Art Thou, the Bog Beast of Bagaba, the Pigeon episode. Yeah, I don't know why we keep doing these types of episodes. So
the Pigeon episode was great.
The Pigeon episode.
Michelle's the biggest fan of that one, but yeah, Ludo is just a horde to me. But anyway, we'll see. I don't know. People seem to like that one from what I've seen online so far. Ludo
Yeah, because it's an interesting episode to watch. And I think that, especially if you're into characters over story, I think there's a case that the Ludo episode is better than Butterfly Trap.
I mean,
like I think subscribe to that,
right? Which I do, but it's a particular set of characters and not Ludo. So
yeah, because you just don't like Ludo's character, but there are people who enjoy his presence on the show, and including myself. And I think that there is potential for great Ludo episodes. This is a okay Ludo episode, but we'll see going forward. Yeah.
I mean, the discourse on Ludo is he was a character that was a sign of season 1 star, and this show changed a lot between seasons 1 and 2, and we like kind of had to figure out what to do with him after season 1, and the show hasn't really at least from my perspective, the show hasn't really known what to do with him at all, and I'm not sure why they just don't write him off like Marco's friends.
Well, now they are kind of writing him off, aren't they?
I guess this episode could just be writing him off, but
at least for a little while, he has to rehabilitate.
Yeah.
Well, because that's what we said at the end of the Toffee episode, because he asked Star, like, just throw me in the portal, I need to work some stuff out. So we figured that was the writing off, like, okay, we won't see him for a while then.
Right. I don't know why we don't just Ferguson and Alfonso him. To me, it's the same thing.
He's more important than Ferguson and Alfonso.
But he's not to the current state of the show. The show continually makes him, I guess he's had stuff to do in season 2. But
I feel like the show cares about him at least as much as it cares about Buff Frog, and we're not going to get rid of Buff Frog anytime soon.
I also don't get Buff Frog. We'll talk
I
about
love Buff Frog. He's one of my favorites.
Look,
I like Buff Frog.
I think we've established in this podcast that Dylan only cares about Star and Marco. He doesn't give a patoot about any of these side characters. Whereas
define patoot.
All of us who enjoy the story of Star versus the Force,
you're not getting
the contributions that these side characters.
You're not getting off without defining patoot, Alex. Come on.
You don't give a hoot.
Hoot. Okay. There's another way to go with that. Yeah, we'll talk about Buff Frog next week. Interested to see if he is still the monster ambassador. I think that's where we left him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's
you guys saying Buff Frog made me think that you're saying Butt Frog, and I was like, who is that?
Who's this new character?
I think that's how I heard it in his first episode. I was like, are they calling him Butt Frog?
Yeah, next week is another mystery, and Marco Jr. It's happening, Marco Jr.
Oh my god!
Struck down. Who knows?
Marco Jr. It's happening.
A kid.
Yep.
Marco's
is asexually reproduced.
Yeah.
Nope, it's future Starco child. It's happening.
No,
That's what's happening next.
Oh, it'll just be Marco's own child made by himself.
Yeah, we're doing that break next week. There you go.
Add that to my drafts of top 10.
No one understands what you're talking about. But,
I mean, wasn't Naysaya an example of that?
Oh.
Yeah, we basically did that in Naysaya. So next week, Marco's child and something with Buff Frog. So that's what we'll talk about. And then, like I said, start the countdown for Booth Buddies 2 weeks from now. It's happening.
What's so big about Booth Buddies? Tell me.
I don't want to spoil their descriptions out.
All right, I'll look at the description.
Lola, think about what Dylan is most excited about in the show, and then apply it to Booth.
and apply it to a booth. That's
Oh my
literally what the
god,
description
are they just
said,
gonna
yeah.
like go on a date in like an Applebee's or something?
At an Applebee's? What?
Yeah, they have
Different booths.
I have the synopsis. It says
No, don't read it. I don't want to spoil
why?
people.
It's out. Why not?
Star and Marco go on
Okay,
an
fine.
Applebee's.
A magical photo booth at a wedding goes on the fritz and captures Star and Marco inside. Okay, the thing that excites me about that is we're going to talk about the fritz again. It's been a while.
Honestly,
But,
this would be
I
more
don't know if
exciting.
we're getting
it
back
at
to
the
Fritz,
show
but-
Fritz, or just on the Fritz as in it's broken?
I think that was just an
I
expression.
want it to be in the show. I don't want it to just be a thing.
Because I don't think that's coming back though if Toffee's gone, because Toffee was the cause.
Right. I think the Fritz was a
It
Toffee thing,
wasn't that
unfortunately.
well explained, though.
It was absolutely not well explained.
Yeah. Oh no!
Yeah.
What if we're bringing that back with Eclipse? Oh.
Anyway, we'll see. So,
I'm interested in that.
yeah, and also 3 weeks is Tough Love. I don't know what that is, but we don't have description.
Tough love for Dylan when Star and Marco's doing up together. So.
That's their current state. What,
Yeah,
what could
it's
possibly
tough
happen?
love.
What could be worse, Michelle,
Tom
than the
Star.
current Tom Star era? Yeah, what could make
Ooh.
this worse?
Could Tough Love be the Eclipse of flashback? Ooh.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Tony had
Her
Marco.
Tough Love with her monster boo. I would be so into that.
I will say I do want an
Cool.
Eclipse flashback. Yeah. Okay, so there you go. Let us know what you thought of Butterfly Trap and Ludo Art Thou. And who's right about what the show should be about, because we are acting as the creative drivers of Star. But
Oh my god, we are not okay. Disney, please pay us or pay Dylan notes because he seems to.
yeah, I'm clearly being
Yeah,
sarcastic.
but please let us know why Butterfly Trap is the best episode of Star.
Have Dylan host the official Star
you
podcast.
guys absolutely did not convince me on that one. I don't.
Well, because you're just stuck in your view of that Starco is all important here.
Exactly.
There's no getting you off of that, and
There are other
convince me
characters
why
too,
I shouldn't think that either. So, yeah.
Was Katang all you cared about in Avatar?
I mean, we were like children, so yeah, I think it was.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So there you go. Yeah, Starco, the Katang of this show. You're just making me love it more, Sam. But let us know what you
Said
thought of
Katang
those
the
two.
right way, so thank you.
And also, Miraculous Ladybug, the Marinette and Adrian are fine. They're great for season 1, but season 2 they're evolving. The show is becoming
that is
more
not a good
of
example of a show with story. Come on, that's not what we
it's
want.
just starting. It's like a season 2 of Star. It was just starting. So, but it's getting better because they're moving on beyond just a relationship.
Yeah, that is not what was holding season 1 back, in my opinion. But that is, we'll see if Ladybug comes back soon. Find those podcasts also at overlyanimated.com. Let us know what you thought of these 2 episodes. And you can, maybe we'll have a panel out. Let me know if you want us to keep going with panels. All that overlyanimated.com. You're listening on YouTube. You can comment there as well what you thought of these episodes. Talk about these with us on our Discord, overlyanimated.com/Discord, and support us via Patreon, patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thank you very much to all of our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Mitch, aka Fever Mitch, and thanks as always to our patron executive producers, John, Ryan, Steve, Alex, Andy, and Hugh. A bunch of upcoming stuff at overlyanimated.com, including a Final Space coverage, Adventure Time, I think OKKO, a bunch of new podcasts coming up. So find all that at overlyanimated.com. Let us know what you thought of this with hashtag Starco is the only thing that matters. And
hashtag Ludo is the best villain.
Yay!
You don't even believe that, though. Come on. It's like,
we still like his character.
Stretching it here. So, yeah, and we will...
Hashtag I am Dennis.
Hashtag Booth Buddies is happening. It's happening.
Okay, I don't think you can fit this many hashtags. You know, Twitter up their character limit.
Well, someone tweet us with all those.
We can have all the hashtags.
Reply to your own tweet if it doesn't fit.
Yeah, exactly. Tweet thread with all the hashtags. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Adios.
Bye.
Bye.